Chapter 16. Demerits? Let me count the ways. Demerits were easy to come by. One demerit for leaving a towel on the bed, one for being late for class, one for missing chores, wearing skirts too short, missing curfew, etc. There were many ways to earn demerits, and I seemed to have found each one. I'd always had a one-track mind, but after that first date my head was in the clouds, and the demerits began to pile up. After 10 demerits, I was campused. Campused meant you weren't allowed to converse with the opposite sex. If you were caught talking to them, you were automatically campused for another week. There was so much I wanted to say to Russ. However, it seemed I was on an endless parade of silent weeks. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and we were growing about as fonder as we could be.
I could leave this chapter out, pretend we were this perfect couple that obeyed all the rules, purport to be a model example of impeccable standards and restraint. That would be a lie, because we were horrible examples. We weren't immoral, unlawful, or rebellious. We just wanted to be together. Still, we look back and praise God in His infinite wisdom. He brought us together at just the right time.
He put us in the right place, and although we kicked against it, with the right rules. However, that didn't stop us from breaking them. What better way to communicate than on a payphone? It was a great plan. Russ went upstairs to the 4th floor phone booth, while I was downstairs in the main floor phone booth. We were both having a delightful conversation. Why would anyone suspect we were talking to each other? Campused again. We decided the only way we could be able to see each other without getting caught was for me to walk into town, where Russ would pick me up and we would drive away. The first time we escaped from campus without permission was to visit a pioneer cemetery, where we walked among the gravestones, read the poems and epitaphs, and got to know each other, a tradition we would enjoy the rest of our lives. We continued this charade until one memorable trip out to the country. We drove as far out as possible until we felt it was safe to pull over. It was a deserted road, miles from anywhere, with cornfields on both sides. Then off in the distance, we saw a person pedaling toward us on a bicycle. The closer she got, the faster she pedaled. The music from Wizard of Oz began to play in my head. Do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. I was mesmerized by the figure until she pulled up beside our open window and said, "Hello." It was one of our classmates. She was visiting her grandmother in the country, riding her bike on that weekend, at that time of day, on that road. We were stunned. It was unbelievable. We were caught this far from school. She wasn't the type to report us, so we breathed a sigh of relief, but felt convicted just the same. I seemed to gather demerits on actions I wasn't even aware of. When I was told I had broken another rule and was campused again, I asked the Dean of Women what I had done. She told me I spoke to the opposite sex. I couldn't for the life of me remember talking with any boys, not even Russ, that week. She told me I spoke to a boy in the stairwell on my way to class. Remembering the incident, I asked, "You mean when I was dashing up the stairs, running late, and someone shouted, 'Do you know where Russ is?' And I yelled back, 'No!' I guess that was it," she nodded. This seemed unfair. I had no idea who asked me the question. Considering how many times I should have been campused, I had no grounds to object, so I graciously accepted my punishment and thanked her as I left. At this rate, I would still be campused when I returned in the fall. The staff at New Tribes was not totally heartless. At the end of the school semester, the students dressed up and attended a special dinner with their dates, similar to a prom. I was still campused, but they allowed Russ and me to go together, have our picture taken, and spend the evening talking. It's one of the few pictures taken of us at Bible school. The last week of school was spent at a missionary conference in the mountains. The preaching was wonderful as usual, and our invisible muzzles were removed, so Russ and I were free to talk. However, we were heartsick knowing we would be separated for 3 months over the summer. We decided we should sneak away one last time and get a hamburger at a drive-thru not far from the conference. As we ate our food and talked, we realized time had gotten away from us. Without warning, Russ took off. My chocolate milkshake flew off the door of the glove compartment and landed right in the middle of my chest. There I sat with chocolate shake all down the front of my white blouse. This was going to be hard to explain. We can laugh about it now, but I was petrified at the time. Somehow I made it back to my cabin without being noticed. I don't know why God put up with our indiscretions and reckless rendezvous, or why He continued to bless us. All I know is He was merciful to me. I loved the school and learned so much about the Lord, I could hardly wait to return in September. The day before the retreat ended, I was called into a private meeting with the staff. They were kind, as they informed me I would not be allowed to return the following semester. My mind raced. What? I was being kicked out of Bible school? They explained I wasn't exactly being kicked out. If I was being expelled, I would have been told a month or so earlier when I reached the school's limit of 75 demerits. However, on the day I accrued that fatal 75th demerit, the staff was in a dilemma. Their system was set up to discipline belligerent, rebellious students who were causing problems and havoc. I was humble, respectful, and submissive to authority. I had a good attitude, loved the Lord, and was always pleasant. In reviewing my case, they determined their purpose in issuing demerits needed to be revised. The following semester, they considered the student's character and attitude. However, for me, it was too late. To put distance between Russ and me, they said I could return in September and attend their school in Michigan. I scrunched my nose. Debbie Smith, Russ's ex-girlfriend, was attending there. Russ drove me to St. Louis, where my parents were waiting to take me to California. We said our goodbyes, and Russ left for Florida. I thought about him the entire way and wondered if we'd ever see each other again. It was now in God's hands.